Okay, so we've mastered knives. We've done our best we can, right? We need to remember that using knives is a practice, that kids will learn as they go. Moms and dads need to stay patient and trust, and it's also confidence building, right? So really do your best to be patient with your child, I would say, is the most important piece of information to keep in mind when you're doing this. That, you as a parent may have some nervous issues, but really staying centered in yourself will help. Really giving yourself time and giving your child time to also learn is also helpful. And setting up your space in the right way also helps to keep things flowing and to keep things safe. So we're going to move on to utensils. And utensils are important to go over with your child in the kitchen, especially if they're helping you make something. You want to let them understand what each thing is used for. It's amazing how many kids will grab a metal spoon to stir something when really they should be using a wooden spoon, for example. How many kids I'll say, can you go grab a spatula, and they come back with a whisk, for example, too. So we're just going to go over what those utensils look like. We're going to really just talk about how they're used. And then you can figure out, in terms of your recipes, how you want to introduce those to your kids. So in my bin here, in cooking classes at Sprouting Chefs, we have quite a big bin. And this is one of the first things we'll do with the kids, is we'll go through the bin and we'll make sure that they all understand what each thing is, so that when we're working with them, we can just say, go grab this, go grab that. They do it, they bring it back, and they know how to use it too. And it seems really simple and straightforward, but it really just helps in the flow again of making a meal together. So one of the first things, like I was mentioning before, really important too, is the wooden spoon. So I have two different kinds. I've got the basic one like this, and I have one like this. Why I have two is that wooden spoons really will absorb a lot of those flavors, a lot of those smells. So this one has kind of been identified as sort of our sweet spoon for making things like cranberry sauce or baking. And this is the one we stir fry garlic and ginger and onions and things like that with. So again, wooden spoons do absorb a lot of odor. So you do want to sort of separate those out and maybe have a few extra on hand. So wooden spoons. And wooden spoons are the safer thing to use when you're mixing things in a pot. Most of us probably learned in home ec that you don't want to leave a metal spoon in a pot heating on a stove, because that heat will conduct through the metal and you'll burn yourself. So wooden spoons are probably one of my favorite tools in the kitchen. The other most important tool are your hands. You're mixing with your hands, you're picking up food with your hands, and it's really important to, again, go over that whole piece around washing your hands in between each task. And what I say to kids is, if you've touched your face, if you've brushed your hair off your face, if you've wiped your nose, you need to go wash your hands again. You want to treat them like surgical instruments that could transfer germs if you're not careful. So keeping your hands really clean is the most important tool and a most important lesson in the kitchen. The next thing is my favorite tool is a set of tongs like this. So tongs are used for picking things up out of the hot oven. They're used to mix salads. They're used to serve things. Putting hot things onto a plate, all that kind of stuff. A good set of tongs, well, you can see different varieties. So these ones have the metal tips with the rubber handles. These are a little bit safer, but you want to make sure that they clasp really well. The next tool would be the rubber spatula. So then there is a difference between a rubber spatula and a spatula like this, right? So this is like for flipping pancakes, for taking things off a hot tray. This is for scraping bowls out, scraping plates off after they've been finished into the compost or food waste. This is a really important tool in any kind of restaurant, because it's going to save you money by making sure there's no waste. And so that's really important, a rubber spatula. The next thing is a grater. Graters are used quite a bit in our recipes, in our lessons. and to point out that there's a smooth side and a bumpy side. And the bumpy side is and can be kind of dangerous, so you want to make sure you're using this really carefully. It can be used to doing lemon zest, right, or Parmesan cheese. And when you're teaching your child how to do lemon zest, you're making sure that they're only scraping down the yellow parts and not right down to the white parts. So a grater. The other thing is that we use a lot are the veggie peelers. So there's different styles of veggie peelers. I'm going to show you this one, and then we also have this one. Okay, both still will have the sharp edges. They have double blades, so you can actually be going one way and then another way with these tools. We use these a lot. They are very helpful for younger students to learn how to use because they can then help you do other tasks in the kitchen. So if you need a whole bunch of things peeled, like potatoes, carrots, cheese even, you can give these to your younger kids and they can practice peeling, and they can make those long ribbons too. We've even used these when we've been doing asparagus. We've been made asparagus ribbons, and it's a great thing to add to salads. Okay, the next tool would be a regular mixing spoon and serving spoon, okay, to serve. And then, I'm not going to go through all the tools in here, but just the basics, and then the whisk. So a whisk is used, and this is really important to go over with your kids. You're not going to be using a whisk to make bread, right? You're going to be using it for pancake batter. You're going to be using it to make vinaigrettes, which will come up later in this series of videos. But whisks are basically to incorporate air into your meals, into your whatever recipe you're making. So obviously we're using it to whip cream. We're using it to add air for egg whites, for those meringues. We're using it to kind of create some air in our recipes using dry ingredients, like to incorporate salt and baking powder into flour before we're making muffins or breads or anything like that. So a whisk is also really important too. The last thing I will point out though also is just a pair of really nice clean scissors. So scissors are also a great thing to use for our younger kids for cutting and also harvesting from the garden. So a good clean pair that you have bought separately that's identified just for the kitchen, so not using for crafts, are also good to have in your little utensil bin. And I'm sure lots of you have them at home. But just pointing them out to your kids that these are for food and making, you know, cutting small pieces of things up, but they're not for your crafts. They're not for cutting your pictures out of your coloring books or anything like that. Okay? So that's our basic utensil bin. Those are things that kids should be aware of how to use. And as we move forward into this series, you'll be seeing some of these utensils in the recipes that we go over. Okay, thanks very much.